Magic?
Magic.
Okay. Magic, I would restore all coastal habitat to be natural coastal habitat, so wetlands, mangroves, a really, really solid buffer system between us and the water.
It's hard to beat that one.
It's a good answer.
Yeah, I think living in the reality of 3.5 million people in the watershed, making sure that we're implementing more innovative solutions using gray-green infrastructure, which is a buzzword, but thinking beyond the status quo of how we're developing within the region and thinking how we could think 20, 30 years down the road of how these systems are going to operate and improve water quality above and beyond what's needed now because of all the factors we discussed tonight. So not doing the bare minimum just to get things permitted, to get things in the ground, but thinking about intentionally 20 years down the road of what we want water quality to look like in Tampa Bay and building to that standard rather than to a standard that's probably out of date already.
All right, not what I thought you were going to say, but you know, some nutrients going in the bay it's very important to have. It helps to provide food source, start the food chain. But we have so much nutrients coming down in stormwater runoff. It's just overfeeding the bay. So my first thought would be to try to dial back all the material that's coming off our properties, our roadways, our land, our agricultural areas, back to historical levels would make a huge dent. And we know that new development has to treat stormwater runoff on their property, but we have so much old development and so much developmental pressure that a lot of this material is still going out in the bay, and we need to keep up with this huge population growth in the future too.
I was also going to mention stormwater runoff, and for those older areas, there are projects that we can look at. We got a grant from the Department of Environmental Protection to study the Alafaya River watershed and locate and studied a wetland system on part of the river. And the concept would be to take water that's flowing down the river, divert some of it through this new wetland that would treat out some of the excess nutrients as that water flows back into the river down into the bay. So through those partnerships, we can look at taking those older areas and improving the water that's going to eventually flow into the bay.
Santino?
Yeah, I think it's been touched on, but I think the big thing is, as Ed said, you know, not applying a standard for development that's probably 25 years outdated. I think if we want to continue to have economic development in this region, we're going to have to do it differently. We cannot keep doing the same thing because I feel like the area has done a pretty good job through these partnerships and kind of holding the line on nutrient loading, but we're not getting the results that we want. So there are other things, other levers that we're going to have to pull. Especially in light of some of the other stuff that was talked about. You know, you've got pressure from higher temperatures and the way water is being delivered to these systems is different. It's coming in big, huge slugs, right? Instead of, you know, maybe historically it was more spread out over the year or at least part of the year during the rainy season. So I would just like to see some changes in terms of new development. And then as Warren said, going back to some of those older areas where maybe we're still on septic, and trying to find ways to make that economical for residents to make a conversion to tie into water treatment. So I really think development is a key thing. And then, as you mentioned, Doctor, we probably can't go back to pre-development conditions, but finding more opportunities to kind of build buffers around developments, you know, preserving some of those areas as we develop. Maybe you don't take all 100 acres of that development, maybe you set 20% of that aside. You know, for those environmental benefits. So